So, welcome back to our Extra AI podcast series. But this is a mini series that we are doing within our podcast series. We have already done our first part of this the autonomous enterprise, or architecting the autonomous enterprise, and this is the second part, where today we will be discussing a bit more on the aspects of revenue leakage in enterprise systems. And welcome on board again, Ahmed. How are you?
Doing great. It's great to be back, Raghu.
So, before we get started, I think this is a term which is very interesting, right? I think revenue leakage. I think what does the thing come to your mind when we talk about revenue leakage, and what does it mean to you when we talk about this in the aspects of enterprise systems?
Yeah, sure. And before I get into answering your question, just a stepping back, a quick introduction about myself, as I'm not sure, whether the same audience would be catching up your episode
Sure,
number two
sure.
of
I
this
think,
series.
yeah.
Uh,
Let's do that.
I'm
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm based out of Dallas, Texas, leading SAP practice at Spectrum Beach, and I have been this SAP ecosystem in particularly for about 2 decades now, helping many organizations to really look into from business intent to their outcome that ties back to your question of revenue, right? So let me double click on that one. When it comes to the revenue leakage, typically people tend to start thinking about maybe my invoices are not correct, we are not billing accurately to the customers and things along those lines, right? When I look back, and these are really some lived experiences, when I look back, usually in many enterprises, each function is operating in a little bit silo environment. What it means is, your sales team who is booking the orders for external customers, your operations teams who is primarily responsible for the services delivery, or if it's a physical tangible asset you are delivering, your operation team or the fulfillment team is accountable for. Then it comes the billing operations team, right, who is responsible for generating the invoices for external customers. All those 3 or 4 functions are pretty much doing what they are supposed to do
Mhm.
correctly and consistently. However, the revenue leakage is as a matter of fact an art of execution, an art of connected platform engineering. What it means is a lot of times it's not a platform issue. It
Mhm.
actually leads back to where there is a handoff gap,
Mhm.
either through the platforms and or through the functioning teams. Let me just zoom out a little bit so it helps your audience to connect the
Mhm.
dots.
Mhm.
I was working at a large program a couple of years back, and although the the revenue reconciliation seems to be quote unquote matchable, meaning that bill to cash, which is basically what you are, if you think about the revenue reconciliation, it's a process of uh, reconciling your what you are billing to the customer and whether you receive the cash in the enterprises. So bill to cash is what a typical revenue reconciliation process is. When it
Mhm.
comes to earned to cash, and it's a interesting terminology that I'm using here. Earned to cash is what you actually intended to deliver or you delivered already to the customer and then reconciling your books, right?
Mhm.
Earn to cash is a little bit different than bill to cash reconciliation, right? So
Mhm.
when it comes to the revenue leakage, most of the times it's a gap due to the earn to cash, quote and
Okay.
unquote, your business intent to generate your revenue according to what you intended to earn. To go back into the experience that I wanted to share here is everything seems to be okay from sales perspective, from operations perspective, technology perspective, yet the
Mhm.
business had some situations where they were more or like finding after the fact that wait, that doesn't seem like accurate, and we are potentially uh, leaking the revenue. And let me
Mm-hmm.
give you the exact example. So if you think about pricing or the the discounts or the promos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually those are intended to increase your revenue in a certain period of time, right? So the promos and the promotions are run for a specific period of time.
Right.
So your intent is to generate more revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and you are supposed to, from an enterprise perspective, supposed to deliver the services and or a product in that specific period of time. But the
Right.
promo and the pricing discount that you are applying is not meant beyond an specific period of time. And that's where the revenue leakage becomes very much interesting, that one silo team who is quote and unquote your sales booking team could
Mm-hmm.
potentially miss out to update the pricing discount validity period in the
Mm-hmm.
in the platform. Now, if you really think about how the connected world of the platform engineering works, there is no way that you would catch it until someone really, the human in the loop,
Mm-hmm.
comes in and say that, wait a second, why we are having less less dollar value of a certain product or a service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the some of the examples where revenue leakage is tied with your earn to cash intent rather than just reconciling your bill to cash, right? And that's where it becomes very much interesting. So when it comes to what it really means, the revenue leakage in any enterprise, it's basically earn to cash intent.
Okay, so let's get a bit more into this aspect. Like, thanks for the great example, and I'll think a background on this. So, let's get into the where exactly this revenue leakage happens in enterprise systems. I would like to go into this a bit more. I know you spoke about this and you brought the concept of earn to cash, but where are these most common leakage points when we talk about across the enterprise operations? Is it going to be more in the pricing side or the quoting side, contract terms, provisioning, billing, usage capture, or something else completely? So, what are those most common leakage points that you have to look into? And why
Great
does this
question.
leakage also happen? Maybe, uh, and why does this leakage happen? Maybe between systems, or maybe it happens inside one system. So, if you can elaborate a bit more on these two aspects, then we can get going. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting question, and a great question in a way that really the people who are into the day-to-day business of connecting the dots would
Mm-hmm.
fully appreciate it. What it means is, uh, it's the revenue leakage is happening in your enterprise even before finance sees it. Let me
Okay.
double click on it. What
Mm-hmm.
it means. The finance sees it only when you are generating the invoices and you are trying to reconcile your, the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very late in the game. As a matter of fact, the revenue leakage in your enterprises is potentially happening before your billing team or the revenue team recognizes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to your question, fairly speaking, it's very broad. It's not just one area where you would say that this is the area where the leakage would be happening. I gave you an example earlier on about the pricing,
Right.
the
Right.
promo,
Mm-hmm.
right? So apparently, when you think about even the automation or autonomous execution, your machine would not be able to recognize this or detect it, because it's not an easy way to detect it unless you start building your business deterministic rule, where you could potentially tie your enforcement
Mm-hmm.
rules, such as it flags it out, what it means. Let's go back to the example that I was talking about. Pricing promotion was applied. Let's say this is the month of June. My business intend to and July 4th in the US is coming up, right? So a lot of direct to consumer businesses would be giving a promotional or a discount offering. Why? Because again, the intent is to have more traffic, more sales, so as you could have the revenue growth, right? That said, the expectation or the intent from an enterprise perspective would be not to go beyond the specific period of time, and it goes along the lines of whether you want to extend to all the way for end of July or before you terminate the discount, right? So to answer your question, it's in many ways depending on certain processes, depending on certain areas, and also how you are configuring your enterprise platforms so as you can potentially detect those signals, right? So the pricing is one. The other one is which I personally also very recently experienced it, is in the world of the media and advertising. We have audience reach out through what we call the digital advertising. The impressions are delivered. Fairly speaking, the impression is a monetized part for an advertising company. What it means is an impression is quote and unquote equal to your physical product, if you will, right? Because we are moving the impression, so the impression has the cost per cost value. Now, if we are keep delivering more and more impressions, what it means is we are over delivering. In other words, it's a revenue potential leakage, because otherwise I could have used my inventory of impressions in a little bit different way. What it means, I could offer to other customer, or I could even offer it as a goodwill to the customer and say my story differently to my customer, that we are over delivering it. Depending on the contractual terms and conditions, we may charge them, we may not charge them, so on and so forth. Because a lot of times goodwill is considered as an opportunity to sustain your customer from a customer retention perspective, and or it also indicate or means that sometimes you could have a potential cross-selling or upselling opportunity with the customer, right? So things along those lines. So fairly speaking, Raghu, it's not one individual block where you would say that, oh, this is the area of potential revenue leakage in an enterprise, but it could be in your usage data records, like the what I'm talking about, the service delivery and things along those lines. It could be in your price terms and condition. It could be in your more like the entitlement as well, right? So entitlement meaning that whether you are entitled to have the service upgrades or not, right, in the SaaS business model.
Right. So let me get a bit more into this, right? I think we know the deals are owned by the sales. We know billing is owned by finance. We know IT systems, IT owns the systems and other things. But exactly when we talk about revenue integrity end to end, who owns this or who has to own this? I know it's a topic we don't discuss much, but it is embedded into the system.
It's a very interesting question, and I have been fortunate to work for several Fortune 500 companies. I think it is one of the hardest question to ask for, right? And here is the reason why. To your point, typically revenue, it's let me give you an analogy so it makes sense to your audience as well. I always try to educate the executives in terms of your ERP platform or the system of billing is a system of record from a historian perspective, meaning that the transaction occurred, you record it, and that's your ERP platform, right?
Right.
The reconciliation or the revenue reconciliation, it's a different ball game. It's not just you're, like I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, it's earn to cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not bill to cash only, right? So it has the combination of earn to cash, intent to cash, right? And if I may say humbly, it could be controversial as well a little bit, but it's fun to say some things along those lines. Nobody owns it in
Mm-hmm.
general, right? In large enterprises, right? So that the teams always tend to have the the reaction or an ability to look back and be
Mm-hmm.
able to find out what went wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to one single a team or the governing body to be able to potentially own it, it is very hard, right? Because you have not just the business functions coordinating together, but
Mm-hmm.
also your systems of technologies working together in conjunction, right, through
Mm-hmm.
automation and stuff like that. So when the things start falling in between, either through the platform or the intent we talked about, the business intent, it's quite hard in any enterprise setup to be able to own. And fairly speaking, Raghu, you are in this ecosystem for quite some time. You also probably know that there is no one single unified report
Yeah. Yeah.
off the shelf
True.
that would say that here is your potential revenue leakage. No, there is none, right?
Right.
So a lot of times enterprises evolve
Mm.
gradually and they learn from the past mistakes. And as a matter of fact, if I may say differently, it's to some extent it's an enterprise architect vision who can help with building such a mechanism or a dashboard or a report or something along those lines that would be able to identify where are the potential leakages out there. Again, not an easy thing to build, right off the bat, but as you work in the technology stream, you understand the business intent, and then you have the right intend to build some technology solutioning around it, there is a art of possibility, right? A lot of times, the enterprises struggle with it. I know from lived experience perspective. And
Yeah.
if you go and just do a little bit of industry or the market survey, you might be surprised to hear
Mm.
that uh, a lot of enterprise leaders doesn't know exactly, what is the true number where
Mm.
we have the revenue leakages, right? Some
Mm.
may say that, oh, I may have 2-3%, 5%, it's all acceptable, so and so forth. But the hard um, um, reality is no one would be able to give you the exact number, and sometimes it's a little bit sensitive and then a little bit, a touchy topic for any enterprise leader to speak on that one, right? Because of the
So here,
the
yeah.
protection that goes along the lines of the revenue, and no
Right.
one
Right.
likes to say that we have the problem.
I want to interrupt you here. I know it's a great way of that you're saying that not one particular team or not one particular thing will own this, but I think this is where the role of an enterprise architect will play big, right? I think this is where I think you bring in all these perspectives, and in the context of your business transformation, I think understand what exactly is happening here and suggest what can be done. Are there any early warning signals that you can analyze, even if the financial reports are acceptable, but inherently there might be some revenue leakage happening? Are there some early warning signals that these business leaders have to take into consideration when we talk about this?
Very interesting question, and I think um, but I recently helped with identifying the early signals, if you will, is really look into your um, credit memos and the billing adjustments that is happening inside your enterprise,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because those would give you some signals and the indicators of where the systematic problem might be sitting in your enterprise, right?
yeah.
Because typically the credit memos and the billing adjustment happen based off what reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may have under-delivered, and you may have something along the lines of, the potential platform issues where you are doing uh, uh, human reviews and you are doing now the billing adjustment or the invoice adjustment, if you will, right? So those are the some a good systematic way to approach it and look into that, right? And as an enterprise um, leader in the space, a lot of times, the business may not, see that way, because they would say that, oh, you know what, credit memo is a natural accounting process, so we do the credit memos, right? But as someone who's sitting at the intersection of the business and the technology, that's where, the enterprise role becomes very interesting and essential to make sure that, the people have clear-eyed about why the credit memos are being issued, why the billing adjustments are being done in the system, what is the month-to-month or the quarterly, the trend,
Mm-hmm.
and why it is happening. So a good explanation of looking into, your past 3 to 6 or 9 months of platform data, and really looking into where could the early signs of the happening leakage happening would give you an opportunity to build something more robust, more scalable, more meaningful for your enterprise, right? It's not like something you could really figure it out uh, very simply when you are doing a greenfield implementation, right? So it's a journey, it's an evolution, right? The things along those lines. But uh, to say the least, if you don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
then you won't know. Uh, you won't know that this is happening in your enterprise.
Okay. So this is so if I go into the details, I know if you have these ERP or CRM systems, they're often we treat them as the backbone of enterprise systems, but they also fail as a true revenue execution platforms, right? I think. Do you think this is probably a technology problem, or the process design problem, or the data model problem, or the governance model problem, or what exactly do you think would be the problem? Because here none of these systems or none of these platforms can realistically help you address this, right? Or I know we've been talking about this, and you it comes to the aspects where these business leaders, the enterprise leaders, like enterprise architects, they have to bring it out, right? I think so. It's what's your thought on that? So it's not a technology problem as such.
It's a loaded question, Agu.
Yeah.
Right? So I think people may have different opinion about it, right? Whether
Mm,
it's a
mm,
technology problem or it's a business rules problem to
mm,
apply in your, certain technology platform. You mentioned ERP and CRM, right?
mhm,
Uh, um, uh, Going back to my, the earlier point of intent, right?
mm, mm,
Intent is what it means, the business intent. Um, to the most part, what I have experienced, it goes along the lines of the data model and the
mhm,
governance problem, right?
mhm,
And let me double click on that one. Take a perfect example of an invoice that's generated through your ERP platform, say SAP platform,
mhm,
and it looks all green to you. Why?
mm,
Because it has accurate contractual information, it has accurate what you delivered, it has accurate, what you call the control passes, meaning that the revenue team has looked into the variances and everything seems to be okay. But here is the problem, you know, and the problems could be in many ways multi-fold, right? So the one example of the pricing that I gave earlier on, right? So the pricing is not intentionally, or I would say non-intentionally correct here, right? Because you end up billing to the customer at a discounted price, but that wasn't the business intent, right? So where is the problem? The problem is in your data model side, right? In your data, because the data did not come clean. And the problem, it could also lead you to the governance, where the governance has the people reviewing the pricing, right? Every time there is a governance model out there, when you are overwriting the pricing or you are doing the promotion or discount, each enterprise has their own way of putting the master data governance around it. Fast forward as we enter into the AI with automation or autonomous execution, your machine is as good as what you would give the machine as an input. So if the intent or your data wasn't clean, or if your data wasn't accurate, don't expect your machine to automatically correct it. And that is the era that all of us are entering into, right? To your point, it's not necessarily the technology problem. It's not necessarily the platform issue, like the CRM, SAP, and whatever the platform you might be using in your four-wall enterprise boundary. But the problem is whether the intent was at the first place right, and things along those lines. And then your operational or the fulfillment capability is also very, very important, right? If you are delivering the service, like I said, advertising, you want to make sure that your fulfillment is at a pace and it's not over delivering or under delivering too much. If you are delivering a physical product, then of course you don't want that instead of shipping just maybe the water bottles, you are shipping something else along with the water bottles, because that's your operation or the fulfillment. Is that, and a lot of companies, as a matter of fact, have a really good check and balances. That said, the leakages happen, and when the leakages happen, then you have to really look into: is it my governance going wrong? Is it my the data integrity going wrong? Or is something fundamentally broken in my system of record, that might be causing it?
So here, yeah, you beautifully explained it. Now with this, revenue complexity might also increase, right? I think when you see companies introducing a lot of these different models, right? I think we introduce subscription-based pricing, we include bundled price pricing, partner channels, digital services, and now we briefly also mentioned about this AI-enabled offerings, right? And all these will contribute towards your revenue complexity, right? I think the revenue complexity will also increase. So many systems or many enterprises may have this excellent system of record, but the execution point might be weaker, right? How do you explain this distinction, and when this complexity is also increasing with all these kind of different based offerings, right?
That's right. And if I just say it differently, and I will double click on that one. If you really think about the order to cash stack, right? It is primarily built for discrete transactions. You book an order, you deliver, your product and a service, and you bill to the customer. And we have evolved in what you very nicely alluded to, from a business transformation perspective, how the businesses that are nowadays operating, right, with subscription, with recurring, the revenue generation model, and so on and so forth. And even, beyond that, revenue co-share model with your partners, the channel partners, and something along those lines. So the hard question is your platform built for it? Is your ERP platform built for it? And the reality is, well, not necessarily. And that's where, you have the team of architects, the team of developers coming together and building your, different types of solutioning around that in order for, to have the outcome that the business intend, right? So the businesses have evolved.
Mm-hmm.
The platforms have certainly evolved from a capabilities perspective, but there is no one single unified platform out there that would give you, the one single unified outcome consistently and sharply, right? And that's why in the ecosystem and in the industry, and I'm sure you talk with a lot of leaders in the space as well. That's where you may keep hearing the challenges a lot of enterprises face is along the lines of how I'm gonna make sure that it is always consistent, it's always recognizable. So really the question is um, how you how you meet the art of possibilities, right? How you build
Right.
your platform and the system such as it gives you the outcome that you intend.
Right.
uh, Now is AI is going to solve for it? Absolutely, it's going to help, but it's also at the same time going to expose the bottlenecks or expose the challenges
That you
in your
have.
data and whatever your enterprises um, may have from the data cleanliness perspective or the data integrity perspective and or the governance perspective. Because to be honest with you, Raghu, and I think I'm gonna say something that your audience may like it,
Mm-hmm.
for a very, very long time in almost all enterprises, human has remained the safety net, right?
Yes.
What it
Yeah.
means, the safety net here is the humans have consciousness, the human has an ability to detect the signals
Mm-hmm.
even though they are not being told or trained, right? So if I see something, um that makes no sense, I have an ability to consciously recognize it, raise the flag, and as we say that in a lot of different settings, if you see something, speak up. If you don't, obviously you are not doing the justice, right? So exactly it is how the autonomous ERP and automation in the future would be along those lines, right? You would build the models, you would train the models, you would potentially add some capability in your models such as they can raise the flag so as the human can review it. Because if you just rely on the machine, then the machine is as good as what you are inputting, and the machine would generate the outcome in a much consistent manner. But unfortunately, a lot of enterprises are not yet ready for the consistent outcome because human in the loop or human safety net had remained pretty much the safety net for enterprises.
That's a great point you've quoted, Ahmed. Like the human safety net or human in the loop, because when you have, I know the systems have evolved, the businesses have evolved, the platforms have evolved, but that mapping between what exactly has to happen, it is still in the realm of the the humans who has to do this mapping. AI can only fasten your exposure, or it can fasten what is happening out there. It can show you faster at a faster pace. And now I want to take this a bit further. Now we talk a lot about AI agents. So agents being built across the enterprise. So how do you see uh, in an autonomous enterprise, now you have agents that can act across sales or across service, across all these different things. Now, what happens uh, if these agents are operating on some fragmented pricing or entitlement or billing or other things? So I know we have already talked about how important it is for the humans that can detect these signals and address. But now enterprises are coming up with these agents, right? They are trying to deploy these agents. What do you see, or what are your thoughts on how should we attempt in responding to this kind of things?
And I think we all are learning, evolving, experimenting, right? As
Mm-hmm.
the machine learning and the AI is taking its due course, I think the maturity would evolve with that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. That said, I try to keep it simple when I'm going in some of the conferences, when I'm speaking, and when I'm interacting with executives and educating them as well. You got to think about an AI is more or like an entitlement enforcement. What it
Mm-hmm.
means is, don't try to make your agents at the first place to start acting or making the decision based on your contract agreements. What it
Mm-hmm.
means is, let the human make the judgment. Let
Mm-hmm.
still have the human review about your, the contractual terms and conditions. Let
Mm-hmm.
still your human make some determination when you have potentially the regulations or potentially your customer reputation at edge. However, be comfortable in making an informed decision for your AI agent to make actions
Mm-hmm.
based on the rules that you are providing.
Mm-hmm.
So the deterministic rule, and in some cases non-deterministic rules,
Mm-hmm.
can be provided to your AI automation, based of which your AI agent would be able to make the actions, right? So when there is what I call the enforcement, enforcing something, making an action, let your agent perform it. You are not gonna lose a lot. As a matter of fact, you're gonna gain a lot by saving the time of your employee, by making the faster decisions, and connecting your different platforms quickly, safely. And as a matter of fact, in many ways, you're gonna build uh, your business quicker. You're gonna scale your business quicker with the help of AI agent or an automation. When it comes to the edge cases, at this moment in time, it is better to have your human in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is, just don't let your agent go wild west
Mm-hmm.
and do whatever the action they can take, because we are evolving, we are learning. AI is also improving over the period of time. Over the last 2 to 3 years, if you look into a lot of evolution has happened, where AI models are now getting better day by day. It's not hallucinating as much as it used to be, and now the intent is getting better comprehend by an AI model. So to answer your question, these are some of two simple rules in my mind. Is my business custom is my business reputation going to be at stake?
Mm-hmm.
Am I potentially could have the regulation situation, the compliance and the regulation situation? If the answer is yes, let's have the human in the loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's not just machine perform an action. My machine could recommend me, but I'm the one who is going to make the decision at the end of the day. And this way, you have the ownership mindset and you have the owner human involved, right? And things along those lines. Last but not the least, very, very important, the person who is in charge or responsible or becoming the owner should also have an ability to see how the machine is coming to those conclusions, right? They don't necessarily have to be the data scientist, they don't necessarily have to be the AI engineer, but they have an ability to understand enough how the machine is coming to those conclusions, right? So as a human can make better decision accordingly.
Beautiful. So I like the way you've put it, right? I think so. This is where, when we talk about a strong revenue architecture, how it looks like, you should have a proper building blocks and then proper contract intelligence and other things. And enterprise architects will be in a stage, or should be more focused on designing that connection between your front office intent and the back office execution. So in that way, the role of an enterprise architect would be even more bigger in these scenarios, in these kind of situations, where this is how you can help or leverage these AI agents to help address some of these data leakage problems. I know we have the third session, which we planned, where we'll go much more deeper into the aspects of governance. But if you want the audience to have a bit of a focus on what is coming up, what do you think about the role that architecture governance could play in protecting this revenue integrity as enterprises are scaling automation at a fast pace? What are your thoughts? I know we'll have much more deeper conversation the next episode.
Yes, I think and I'm intentionally pausing here because it's a very interesting question, and probably not many would have an answer at this moment in time. But the way I see the things, I think the future winners would have the better control, governance, and an ability to have the control on the cost as well, because AI economics is also not cheap at this point in time, right? There is a cost tie with it, so the governance and the cost hand in hand goes together, right? The winners would not necessarily have the most sophisticated or the fancy AI models, but the winners would have much more sophisticated control mechanism of AI spending and measuring the outcome tie with it. I think I'm gonna pause here because I think that the next episode that you have planned with me would be much more deep dive into the governance and then control plane, things along those lines. And I think that's where I see the future, where enterprises should start focusing and investing on how they can have the better visibility of the AI spending, measuring the output and the outcome of it, and then making the absolute informed decision to scale it up, right? Because no one would like to have an experience of when the cloud was new and enterprises experience some price shocks, if you will, right? So there is now a learning out there. Uh, there are many great leaders out there who talk about those things upfront, and I think that's the future where the next few years, 2 to 3 years, in my opinion, would be very interesting for any enterprise to really look into and either invest into the platform or either start thinking about how they can govern it better.
So before I let you go, I believe I always have this question. I put it in this way: the XTraw AI question, the $1 million, $1 billion question. If you were advising a CFO or a CIO together, what would you tell them in the next 90 days to identify and reduce revenue leakage? What would that one thing that you would advise them?
Oh gosh, okay. I wish if I could give you, a simple deterministic answer. Uh, I alluded to in my one of the previous, talking points is look into where you are potentially keep doing the credit memos and the billing adjustments, because those are some the signals where your external customer may not be very happy with your enterprise because they are keep receiving the credit adjustments or credit memos, because it's an experience, the customer experience is not so great, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, when it comes to the revenue leakage and stuff like that, like I mentioned, it's an evolutionary journey in any enterprise, how to potentially measure your business intent to cash, earn to cash, what I called it in accounting terms,
Mm-hmm.
earn to cash versus bill to cash. Bill to cash is easy, it's
Yeah.
very easy what you intend to bill and sorry, what you build, not intend, what you build, and then reconciling against your cash. It's an easy science. It's an easy accounting, right? You could do that very easily. But what, as a matter of fact, you earned is different than what you are receiving as a cash. So the gap in between is potentially the gap of what you and I understand it's a revenue leakage, and you want
Mm-hmm.
to control that, and you want to measure that, and you want to improve that, right? So the the ideal goal would be zero revenue leakage, but
Mm-hmm.
it's too ideal. So let's make it, close to 1 or close to 2%, not more than that, right? But if you go to any large enterprise, they would have a problem very easily, so, you know, uh, I want to be cautious here, but, usually 5 to 7% is very common.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a great talking with you. I know as enterprises are moving towards this AI assisted automation and execution, autonomous execution, that's what we call. Uh, the leaders have to rethink revenue integrity, not just as a uh, finance control after the fact, but more as an architectural principle. I think that's what is we are alluding to. And of course, we'll get into the governance aspect in much more detail in the next conversation that we are going to have. And thanks for your time.
Uh, Thank you, Raghu. It's been pleasure talking with you and recording another podcast here. Looking forward to the next one. I always enjoy having an insightful conversation like this one. So thank you for hosting me here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed, for joining us again on XTraw AI and for sharing your insights on revenue leakage in enterprise systems. As this conversation highlights, revenue leakage is rarely caused by one broken system. It often hides across pricing, contracts, order management, billing, operations, and governance. As enterprises move toward more autonomous execution, architecting for revenue integrity becomes even more critical. To our audience, thank you for tuning in to this second episode in our special series. Stay tuned for the final episode with Ahmed, where we will explore AI and decision governance. This is Raghu Banda, and until next time, let's keep extracting the raw AI conversations. Happy predicting the future with XTraw AI.